We are going to just explore, very much at the beginning. There's lots of questions about AI, use of AI in the SAP ecosystem. And we're going to try and blend their various experiences to just give you some insights, both from an architectural, business, and storytelling perspective of how AI can be infused in a SAP-centric ecosystem. So without further ado, let's have you folks join me. So before we get into any questions, a quick intro from yourselves.
Thank you. Hi everyone, so I'm Punit. I work at BB. Hopefully you all know what BB. I represent BB here as my head of product and business information security. Sorry for the long title. But basically it's all about bridging the gap between the cybersecurity teams and the businesses. And I also look after our SAP portfolio globally from a cybersecurity and compliance perspective.
Excellent. Dipti?
Hi everyone, I'm Dipti Jakhodia, Director Finance Transformation. My current mandate is around tax and global trade. Spend most of my time doing finance transformation. I enjoy strategy and problem solving. And I think that fits in well with the role that I play at Hayden, which is a carve out from GSK Consumer. That was a carve out from GSK Consumer Healthcare. That's me.
I did mine already. Unless you want me to say it again, I think we can probably move on.
I think we could. So let's pick up with you first, do that problem solving. So C-suite leaders, as we know, face competing priorities across various different types of business transformation. How can enterprise architects help organizations stay agile whilst balancing all the various competing priorities?
I guess the bigger the enterprise, the bigger the challenge. And what I think continuously becomes challenging for organizations is the alignment of the purpose. Alignment with the purpose gets lost in the organization hierarchy. So a continuous reminder of what is the vision, what is the mission, and a loop back into what was the purpose, why we set these objectives is really important. From an enterprise architect perspective, I think just enabling the purpose and keeping their eye on what the reasons are for a particular transformation to happen and how you continuously measure those outcomes is really key. Just to give you an example, every conversation or every change agenda hinges on data security, redundancy, data latency. And sometimes in the office of CFO, you kind of wonder why is every conversation going back into the same loop at the same governance? Can we enable the enterprise architecture in a way that makes it a lot more agile for businesses to bring in that value at speed? So I think from our perspective, yes, there are many priorities. But as leaders, if we can continuously remind the businesses as to what the vision and the mission is, and likewise on the technology side, if we keep focused on what that vision and mission is and establish continuous loop of measuring our outcomes based on that vision, it will be very powerful.
So thinking of that loop, and looking specifically at agentic AI, how do you, from an architectural perspective, go about determining the right roadmap to help people like you to see those?
Yeah, no, fair point. So I think Dipti, as you mentioned, our job is to continuously enable businesses understand the vision and the mission right. And from an enterprise architecture perspective, I always use this analogy with my folks saying, enterprise architects are like the designers of the car. They design the flashy cars, all the systems, etc., etc. We from cybersecurity come and say, hey, don't forget about the seatbelts, don't forget about the brakes, don't forget about all the means to secure this car. Now, imagine when you go out to buy a car, you actually say, you know what, I would like to have a brake as well. No, you expect a car to be shipped to you with brakes on, right? So similar mentality that when enterprise architects are designing, whether AI systems or any other ECC S4 transformations, right? Security should be a foundation, not a feature. It should be baked in by design. It should not be an afterthought. And that's where the partnership between enterprise architects and cybersecurity is key, because yes, we don't want our customers to actually think about data security, all the other things which my panelists sort of spoke about. So that's part number one. And part number two, from an agentic AI and all the AI sort of POCs and use cases which are coming out, ensuring that all those use cases go through a rigorous framework around AI assurance, responsible AI. There are a lot of sort of aspects to that. Can't go in detail into all of that, but yes, there are frameworks out there which will make sure that all the AI use cases are going through proper assessment in terms of fairness, biasness, explainability, privacy, security. There are multiple aspects. So would like to comment.
Okay, so let's just take the security or AI, agentic AI as an example. This is for both of you. Dipti coming at it from a CFO perspective, Daniel, based on what you told us about emotion first, information second. And I mean, no disrespect to us as an SAP community, but we want to talk in technology terms rather than business outcomes. How can, again, picking up the themes you talked about, maybe specifically in the finance function, how can you help this group frame the kind of stuff that Punit has been talking about in terms of seatbelts and the car, to actually to make them listen?
Well, I think it's interesting because Punit, you've just given a great example. One of the ways we can simplify complexity is through great analogies and metaphors, and that does a couple of things. One, perhaps helps our own audience to understand if they're not already totally au fait with the subject, but it can also create, therefore, a shared language that we can continue to use. So I don't understand the complexities, but if we were having this conversation, I'd say, oh, so the car alarm is then like X, Y, Z, and you and I can then talk on, in my layman terms language as well, because we're not always presenting to the CTO or the CIO. There's CMOs even, or CEOs, and they're all different. But the other thing I think we can do is tell stories. So I talked about creating an experience earlier, but telling stories is another talk I could have done. And I think people are worried sometimes about telling stories because they don't know how. And I think the answer is much simpler than you think. And actually, I'll anonymize the client, but you and I were on a pitch together a couple of years ago, which we were successful in. And it was a complex piece of SAP work. And it wasn't that the client didn't understand the complexity. We wanted them to trust that we were the people who could handle the complexity. So at the beginning of every presenter's talk in the pitch, they all told a very short and relevant story. I think you told one about your travels. One of them, I'll tell you a quick one now. So the lead program director said, I love Lego. And she had a photo of her Lego at home. And she said, that's the Taj Mahal right there. Now, when I bought the Taj Mahal, I got it on Amazon Marketplace to save a few pounds. And when I built it, after spending a morning on the first layer, when I got to the second layer, I realized there were pieces missing from one of the bags. And it meant I couldn't build it any further. So I went back to try and order the bags, and I couldn't find them. And I ended up buying the full price Lego set, which came 2 weeks later. So it cost me so much more time and money. And this is how I feel about SAP. We go check every bag before we start building. And all of a sudden you get a little, ooh, okay. I will remember that. And we gave them a little piece of Lego to remember that story as well. So it's powerful stuff, storytelling, and it's stories we've already got inside of us.
Sorry, just to build on that, I have a similar analogy of what I call winnowing the wheat from the chaff. So from the CFO's office, all we care about is the wheat, that is the gold. Everything else we don't really care about. We just want us to be able to see the wheat. That's an example. So that's a transformation project we were working on, and the mandate was to focus on supply chain finance. Now, for anybody who is non-finance, to get your head around supply chain finance is extremely difficult. So going back to storytelling, one of the tools we used was, it's very simple. You have an invoice, you pay your invoice in 90 days when you were GSK. All we need you to do is to pay that even further later. That was very easy for people and our peers to understand in the technology department. So we were like, you spend 90 days to pay your invoices, that's your vendor cycle. We're now going to pay it in 100 days. And that's going to enable supply chain finance for us. So de-jargonizing a lot of the finance concept, if I go back to my experiences, to enable our partners in technology, digital tech, can really help them to see what our purpose is where we want to take the business to. Likewise, I think tech is now underpinning anything and everything we do. So as business leaders, it is also our job to understand what technology means and what the challenges are and the governance that it comes from. So both have to give and take to kind of, really move forward.
Really, really fascinating. So I'm going to try and get you guys to apply that a little bit in just in the next class. So technology is moving rapidly. Not everybody's on S/4HANA. Now, there's different debates on whether or not you're still on ECC, should you take advantage of AI, should you wait for S/4HANA? How would you, let's just say, pitch to a business stakeholder on, yes, go for it now? What is start with meeting?
Yeah. I think some aspects of AI can be used whichever tech stack you are on. To give an example, within BP, we have been trialing things like, can we write functional specs using AI? Simple, you don't need a S4 or any other sort of, any stack you take, right? But writing functional specs, writing test use cases, all of these things which takes a lot of time for our consultants, you can use GenAI by putting some guardrails, right? If I give an example closer to where I am in cybersecurity or access controls or controls and compliance and all, we have been using AI, machine learning, not AI, but machine learning over the last many years to do fraud detection, to actually help our business users understand that, okay, you might have these millions of authorizations and roles, but in reality, your businesses are actually doing this on a daily basis. We have this data, so don't come to us and say, oh, I need this to do this because you use this. And no one in your team is actually doing this, so why do you think so, right? So basic examples, people are using AI. Now, do they need some flashy sort of tech to go to S/4HANA to use AI? Yes, S/4HANA natively comes well equipped with a lot of GenAI hooks, especially the responsible AI framework we explained about, which has got privacy, security, explainability, and all of these terms. Please use ChatGPT to understand. I can also explain, but we have like 10 minutes or so. But yes, I think from an S/4HANA perspective, what I've understood and read is that it's by sort of design, it's coming natively integrated with a lot of built-in security and privacy controls.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, final question for me to you two, and I will take on from the audience. So, on a similar theme, where do you see Dipti AI playing in the finance space in the future? And Danny, more broadly, in the future of the work that we do?
So when I say AI, I actually group them into 3 buckets. The first one is automation. And automation, I think, it was Mihir who said, it's been around for a very, very long time. It's the intelligence part that's now becoming, prevalent and we want to use it. But when we say automation and intelligence into it, the first part that I see and what will really enable is just looking at your operations. So the end-to-end process for, say, source to pay, lead to cash, can we and how can we bring in AI to kind of simplify or make those processes more seamless? The second bucket where I see AI is what brings in competitive advantage to a business. So if Halon is in the business of selling Sensodyne, what and where does AI come in to enable us to grow our market share? That's the second piece, and that's very unique to us, to Halia. I mean, we can bring in partners for advising us, etc. But as an organization, we have to go through the maturity of using the newer technology. And the third bucket is where AI truly becomes your strategic business partner. And the way I see it is, where we are now, we're still not on S4. There is a lot that we can do just on the operation part. So just making our processes touchless, there is a lot that we can do even being on ECC. There are tools and applications sitting outside in cloud and BTP that are easily bolt on to any ERP, core ERP that you have. That, I think, is what we do now, and don't wait for a big S4 program to kind of finish all the deployment. And the future, obviously, is a future where I see AI as a true business partner, enabling decision-making and business growth.
Yeah, so I guess AI is everywhere. There's nowhere it's not, there's nowhere that it's not going to be. So it's, for me, much more about how we frame these conversations. And I think the mistake we make when we're having these conversations, when we're pitching, is a couple of things. Firstly, we talk about ourselves. And, you know, IBM do this a lot, I can say that. We say, hi, we're IBM, we're the best at SAP, we've got the most certifications, and we're the safest pair of hands, and clients going, okay, well, I've got big problems to go back to. So it's about reframing any conversation with our audience as the hero of our story. And then the second thing we don't always do is contrast between good and bad. We tend to just go, here are all the good things, the good things, the good things. And you don't even get children's books that only have good things happening. The stories always have a bad thing. So I've got a bit of a 6-box model which essentially goes, here's the current world, your current world audience. And I think, for example, here are the things, problems you're facing because ECC6 can't do scaling, it's not as fast, and all of these other things. And then we contrast to, but here is a glorious vision of the future. Imagine a world where you could have AI running your ERP and whatever it is. Then we contrast again to say, but there's not necessarily easy. A migration has got different options, bluefield, brownfield, greenfield. Which way are we going to go? Well, you need a trusted partner to do that. Because young Jedi, there are obstacles as a path. And we contrast again to say, but here is our big idea. Here is a proposition we have created specifically for you and your business that will get you to that vision by overcoming those obstacles. 2 more boxes. Box number 5, we contrast and say, but we can't just do it to you. The success is a partnership. Here are the dependencies on you for us to work together. And then finally, box number 6 is, and here is why we are the only business in the world you can rely on to do this, our secret source. And that's the evidence bit at the end. Try that 6-box, I call it the story coaster, and it's quite hard to write a bad story.
Great, thank you. Deborah, do we have time for a couple of questions? Allow? I'll take that as a yes. Anyone got anything they'd like to ask this team panel?
What do you do in your orgs to facilitate faster decision making?
So the question was, what do you do in your organizations to facilitate faster decision making? Let's start with you, Punit.
Yeah, I think really tough. So like every big organization, right, we have these structures wherein there are project teams, you have the business engaged, you would have a steering core in which you have someone from the business who is sponsoring the outcome, you would have someone from the technology who is delivering that outcome, and then of course you need the right persona in the room, right? So to enable faster decision making, it's very important that you sort of bridge the gap between outcomes which are delivered and the person who is the recipient of those outcomes, for him or her to see that in a faster manner. If you bridge that gap by bringing those people on the common table in a frequency which is good for your business, I think that would establish trust, transparency, and it's similar to at our homes, we all make decisions. Decision making is faster if I know where my money is going. If my kid comes to me and says, Daddy, I need this, I would always say, okay, what are you going to do with it, right? And can I see some, examples of where you're spending your money. So it's about trust, it's about being on the same table, and then of course you need to have a lot of other routines for big companies because of security and governance and a lot of other sort of mechanics which we all sort of bolt on, but to me it's trust and transparency. Hopefully that makes
Yeah,
sense.
thank you.
For us,
Sorry, I was just going to say some
Yeah.
hands raised online. So sorry to you. Please go ahead.
We'll
Just-
take questions.
just to build on that, I think similar theme, collaboration and communication. Often when we kick off a project in the business side, tech has not been invited to the table. And that is a whole new conversation then to even start talking about what's the value. And as business, you're like, we've already had that conversation, we're not going over it again. But if you turn the tables, bring all your partners on the table at the same time. One of the things that I've done in my team, it is in my team's objective to go make a friend outside of the finance department. And that's part of their OKRs. They have to kind of, have coffees, go meet people, understand what they do in supply chain, in technology. And just, then it's just easier for you to drive the agenda or, make decisions.
Can we get one? I saw Mark Derbyshire's hand go up. Mark, do you have a question?
Yeah, I really liked what Dipti said about, trying to make sure that you get as much value out of your existing landscape as possible, and also about, the cultural bit of connecting silos or teams together throughout the organisation. Thank you, Dipti. But I'm also really interested in what that foundation might look like. It would be great if we could have a foundation that provides a basis for intelligence and basis for AI, but a foundation that we could maybe today sit on top of ECC and then hope tomorrow would sit on top of S4. And at one level the answer to that is BTP, but I think we're at a little bit more of a nuanced level on this call. Do we have any views as to what that platform might look like and how it evolves and things like that? Because that to me allows me to be successful today and tomorrow, and then next week also move towards a more future safe landscape. Does that make sense?
It does. I'll give you an example, and it's never an easy conversation within an organization to bring in a new technology when you're on the old tech stack. And often the challenge is, well, what is the regret cost? And personally, I think there is bigger regret in not doing anything. I think one of you talked about progress over performance. And that's really how organizations should be working, set yourself smaller objectives, smaller tasks, and then measure those outcomes. To give you an example, as we separated out of GSK, our technology, our processes were very pharma-centric. So for us to quickly pivot and fit into the CPG space was hard. One of our leaders took a bold step to transform the operational transfer pricing process, which used to take us 6 months to get any view on profitability to as short as possible. Now the tool we were looking at was the APM, which is on BTP, and the challenge that we were facing with digital and tech and widely across the organization was, if we do this now, the investment is down the ditch because we have to come back and reinvent and do everything from scratch. What we actually managed to do is we enable the entire profitability review process to run in the APM. Nothing changed in the core ERP. It's a plugin. Because at the end of the day, when you look at profitability, you actually need your trial balance. You need your ledger. When we move on to S4, I am hoping it will be a flick of a switch. Obviously, it never is. You will have to run your tests. You have to check your models. But I'm hoping all the training that we've done on our models will not have to be redone. So from 6 months, we now do our profitability review in 2 weeks. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, it does. I think I'm also interested as to, can we sort of think about a collection of services, maybe, within BTP that then provides us with a platform to start to allow the business to move forward. I love your PAPM example, but I would also think that there might be other parts of the organisation that could still be left behind, and how do we bring them along? So Yeah, it's an interesting. I'm very interested as to, what should the collection or the bill of materials of services from BTP be for an intelligent enterprise and an enterprise ready for automation and so on. It's not just, oh, I turn up with BTP and I turn up with AI and I switch them on and off we go. I think it's going to be a bit more complicated than that. So thank you, Dipti.
Thanks, Mark, for the question. I'll take one more before I get told to wrap. Yes. Go for it.
I'm just curious to know, like, what's the challenge you see when you are pitching AI or any transformation like S4 to your senior leadership, and how can we help you in case you want to take, some guidance from us to go further?
So the question was, what challenges do you face when pitching something transformational like S4, and how can the room of enterprise architects help? So let's start with you. We'll work our way this way.
I don't have any problem pitching to an IBM leader about AI, to be honest with you.
Was your question more around pitching S4 transformation or pitching AI?
AI, more specific AI, because I know there is apprehension about AI and all the security aspects, and so people think about
Yeah.
lots of that.
So I think the good news is that all the senior leaders, right from the CEO down to CEO -1, they all want an AI use case in their arsenal, because when they are talking amongst themselves, they have a real peer pressure. Hey, so what are you doing on AI? That's what I have. When I go to people, everyone wants a pet AI project to an extent where they are going out in their circles and saying, okay, so can I use this? Can I use that? And every day there's a new startup coming, claiming they can solve, all the problems. But going back internally when we pitch, I can tell you there are 100+ AI use cases going on, and within cybersecurity as well, we are using AI in threat detection and fraud detection, in simplifying our workflows. But in the SAP world, a lot of opportunities as well. The big challenge which people are putting back to us is it a fad again? Okay, there's a lot of investment going, trillions of dollars going in AI infrastructure. On the application layer, people are still not sure. And then there was a study which came back last month, 95% of AI projects would fail from MIT. I think that was widely circulated across the media. If you have not read, please. But yes, the challenges are people have still not seen the outcomes in enterprises. In our personal life, we all are using an AI model every day. Even my kids are using a 10-year-old, but enterprises are often late in adopting what the general public sort of starts. Look at WhatsApp, social media, etc., etc. In enterprises, still we are far behind. So I think the biggest challenge is, would it work? And of course, the second most important one is the data. I can switch on AI model, but do I have the right data foundations across the business? And what happens is, invariably, there's a leak. Do I have the regulatory pressure? Do I have got all the audit and other sort of nuances understood? So I think there are a lot of questions which people have in mind. So everyone is sort of starting small, do a pilot, prove that this works in the boundaries of, the guardrails of our own sort of company, and then we'll sort of start to scale it up.
Likewise at Helion, I think when it comes to the C-suite, there is no debate. If they would have it their way, they would have it yesterday, than in the next few months. So that debate is no longer a debate. The challenge is around data, process, people. And I think we are, because the bigger the organization, bigger the challenge, we are far from actually enabling. There's an element of trust as well. So digital and tech is enabling AI, bringing in new solutions. We've got Copilot, we've got Ask Helion. Is there trust as a user? That doesn't exist today. So for every organization to go through that maturity of playing with AI, championing what AI can do for you, and then building that trust in the system, I think it is a cultural thing.